For those unfamiliar, the components that make up the electric system that drives a Formula E car is called a powertrain. This includes the electric motor, or MGU, which is responsible for both delivering power to the wheels and for regenerating energy, the battery, and the inverter. For the Spec Chassis series, the powertrains are probably the biggest competitive difference between the cars teams bring each year. After its second season, teams and manufacturers were able to design their own powertrain setups to compete against one another after FIA homologation, similar to how teams in F1 can develop their own engines. Naturally, every manufacturer got to work creating powertrains with their own unique advantages and disadvantages. In 2018, Formula E introduced their Gen 2 car, which updated the bodywork and the power regulations for the series. Along with the new car came many rippling changes across the board before the beginning of Season 5. One of these massive changes came in the rebranding of the Renault E.dams team. At the time, Renault was easily the most successful team in Formula E, with star driver Sébastien Buemi winning the Season 2 championship and coming runner-up in both Seasons 1 and 3, accumulating 12 victories along the way. Teammate Nico Prost had also contributed 3 victories, leading the team to win the team's championship the first 3 seasons in a row. But after a disappointing fourth season that saw the team only score 4 collective podiums and place 5th in the team's championship, Renault relinquished manufacturer control of the team to its parent company Nissan, allowing it to focus on its Formula 1 program. Along with the French manufacturer, Alain Prost, co-owner of the team, stepped away, taking his son Nico Prost with him. In his place came Dams F2 driver Alexander Albon, partnering Buemi for the 2018-19 season. However, the reason for this video is concerning Nissan's plan for their powertrain to compete in Season 5. Before Renault's departure, they had begun developing a powertrain that Nissan then picked up for their first season. They opted for a twin MGU design to power the rear axle. This wasn't something unheard of in Formula E. In fact, it had been used before by DS Version and Next EV Neo, but had been dismissed due to the weight disadvantage of having 2 electric motors. Nissan's IMO1 would be the only car on the grid to run a twin MGU design. Of course, most of us know about Alexander Albon's incredibly late signing to the Toro Rosso F1 team, allowing Oliver Rowland to come in and take the second Nissan FE seat, setting his first times during preseason testing. But as the season began, the true brilliance of Nissan's twin MGU powertrain began to be revealed. It wasn't that Buemi and Rowland were dominating week in week out, snatching up wins and podiums with ease. Their damage was being done in qualifying. Through 13 races, rookie Oliver Rowland scored 3 pole positions and made it to Super Pole 5 times, with an average qualifying position of 8.69. This was done primarily in qualifying groups 2 and 3, so about in the middle. For a first-year driver to Formula E, these numbers were incredibly good. His teammate though, Season 2 champion Sébastien Buemi, also scored 3 poles, but he made it to Super Pole 12 out of 13 races, with the worst qualifying position of 8th. His average qualifying position over the course of the season was 3.85. This is the best average qualifying performance over the course of a single season in Formula E history, just beating out, ironically, Nicolas Prost back in Season 2, who had a 3.9, and Prost did it with 3 less races. The twin-motor powertrain seemed to show incredible acceleration speed out of a corner, and under the correct conditions seemed to be the standout in the field. Several of Buemi's Super Pole runs where he didn't score the pole seemed to show a clear mistake, so it's possible the full potential of the car wasn't even reached. With such great qualifying pace though, you'd expect the pair to have racked up a significant amount of wins, podiums, and to be serious contenders for the team's drivers' championships. And while Sébastien Buemi eventually finished P2 in the drivers, he was never really considered a serious contender and entered the final race P4, 26 to drift of leader Verne. Rowland had ended up P10, leading Nissan E.dams to finish P4 in the team's championship. As fast as they were in qualifying, the race pace of the IMO1 was inconsistent. The car definitely seemed lacking in terms of energy efficiency. The Nissans held solid pace for most of the race due to the overall speed of the powertrain, but as the race drew to a close, they found themselves down on energy, thus forced to conserve more than the drivers around them and fall back down the order. At no race was this more evident than the Mexico City E-Prix. Both Rowland and Buemi fought at the front this entire race, and despite there being a safety car period, and despite neither Rowland nor Buemi actually fighting for the win of the race, unlike Wehrlein, both ran out of energy just after taking the final lap, finishing 20th and 21st.
J'ai plus d'énergie! J'ai plus d'énergie!
C'est ce que je t'ai dit, on s'est trompé.
Mais c'est pas possible, purée! Mais putain de merde! Ça nous est jamais arrivé en 5 ans. Il faut qu'on dépense un argent de fou pour un système de stratégie qui...
In 7 of 13 races for both Buemi and Rowland, they finished further down the order than where they started. Collectively, the pair scored 6 podiums and a lone New York City victory at the hands of Sébastien Buemi. By now, you may be curious about the subject of this video. Why did this powertrain get banned by the FIA? Or more specifically, why did this lead to a ban of all twin MGU powertrains from Formula E? Well, as the season went on, more and more teams and drivers began to scrutinize Nissan's excellent qualifying pace, with Lucas de Grassi and Jean-Eric Verne being the most vocal proponents. This forced the FIA to look into the design of the powertrain itself. Now, Formula E and Nissan never released how the twin MGU powertrain actually worked, but there has been some speculation as to what the second motor was actually used for. Here's the best explanation I was able to find by Craig Scarborough of CarMagazine.co. So, in Formula E, energy recovery is one of the things very easily regulated by the FIA, by placing restrictions on energy going from the MGU back to the battery. In addition, they can regulate the amount of power coming from the battery to the MGU. There is no alternative storage space for energy allowed in the powertrain. What Scarborough believes Nissan did with the twin motor design is the following. Both of the motors would be connected to the same differential and work together to power the rear axle. But as the car slowed for a corner, only the larger motor would provide regenerative braking. As the two were connected using an epicyclic or planetary gear system, the smaller motor would remain freely spinning, acting as a flywheel, conserving the kinetic energy built up while active, while also gaining energy from the larger motor braking. When the car has to accelerate again, the smaller motor provides an additional burst of acceleration in addition to the power from the larger motor. Therefore, and please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, as the car accelerates out of the corner, Nissan's twin MGU setup would be able to apply more power to the axle than is regulated out of the battery. This would explain their quick pace in qualifying, with their rapid acceleration out of the corners being a short-term gain. But it also explains some of their struggles in the race, as because the system is heavier and energy is lost on the way towards two motors, the drivers may need to conserve more energy to make up for it, which they may have discovered in the opening rounds. But what really makes me believe this is that the FIA were so quick to issue a vote and go through with the ban. The reasoning was that they were trying to limit the cost and resources needed in developing powertrains, so that the bigger manufacturers like Nissan couldn't spend millions developing a system that a smaller brand like Venturium or Hindra couldn't. And I guess this makes sense from a competition aspect, but my question is, why now? Why wasn't the twin MGU powertrain banned back when Virgin and Neo used it? In my opinion, whether it's because of their power exploits or because of their shoe pace in qualifying, the FIA were simply scared of a team finding an overly dominant edge, or manufacturers beginning to compete in an incredibly expensive development war, one that would kill off smaller OEMs competing. After deliberation from the teams in the FIA World Motorsports Council, twin motor powertrains were banned from Formula E competition from Season 6 onwards. This was announced on June 20th, 2019. There were still 3 races left in Season 5, and Season 6 would begin testing in October. This meant that all of Nissan's development of their Season 6 powertrain would have been wasted, as they were solidly in favor of keeping their twin motor design for the new year and would now have to start from scratch with a single MGU powertrain. I will say though, with such a short turnaround, the team did an incredible job with their Season 6 challenger. Through the tumultuous COVID-affected season, Buemi and Roland finished P4 and P5 respectively in the drivers' points, with Roland taking his first E-Prix victory and Nissan E.dams finishing P2 in the team's championship. They didn't keep the solid run going though, ending at the Gen 2 era with a P10 in the team's championship in Season 7 and a P9 in Season 8. Luckily, they seem to have found their form with the Gen 3 car, especially since rehiring Oliver Rowland, who's a serious threat for the title this year. But how would they have done if they had kept their upgraded twin MGU design that they had initially begun working on? At the end of Season 5, it was looking incredibly strong, and with Buemi and Roland having a whole season's worth of experience with its eccentricities, who knows how Season 6 could have played out, let alone their downfall in Season 7 and 8. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think about the story down in the comments below. If you have any ideas on how Nissan could have used their twin MGU powertrain to gain an advantage, definitely put it down. As I said, I'm not the most experienced person to discuss the more engineering aspects of Formula E, but if you are, I'd love to see what you think. Also, thank you guys for 1,000 subscribers. It means a lot.